have you all here in the Wanda Coleman Theater. This is the Southern California Poetry Festival. We have events going on all weekends. We had a great program last night with More Mother, Tongo Ison Martin, and Abby Page, who is right here with us. Ton of great programs today. Thank you to all of you who have stuck around throughout the day. And tomorrow we have some great programs as well. We have some panels and showcases from Distill Arts, Four-Way Books, Writ Large Projects, and the Poetry Lounge. We have a program featuring voices of the Central American diaspora, sponsored by Letras Latinas. We have a Poetics of Grief and Liberation program, and then in the evening we have California Fuchsia, a reading with David St. John, Sarah Borjas, Allison Hedgecoke, and Lee Herrick. Please do come back for that. For this evening, however, we have a special program. This is new work that we have commissioned from Erin Marie Lynch, Gail Wronsky, and Harmony Holiday. I'll get into that in just a second, but it's something we like to do every year for the festival, is include some original commissioned work. Just to tell you a little bit about Beyond Baroque and about what we do here, we usually like to begin by acknowledging Beyond Baroque's presence on the traditional ancestral territory of the Tonga peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to indigenous peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent dispossession of their land. And as an arts organization, Beyond Baroque is committed to uplifting indigenous writers, their narratives, and their art. We are Los Angeles' oldest literary institution. We've been here since 1968, and we exist to nurture new writing and support writers. And one of the ways we do that is every year through the Southern California Festival, which is really a way of gathering people from all across the region and indeed across the country to celebrate poetry, to celebrate poetry communities, to shine a light not only on Beyond Baroque, but on the different presses and organizations and communities that make up the range of LA's poetry and Southern California's poetry communities. So a huge thank you to our staff who have contributed to this event, particularly Jimmy Vega, our Associate Director, Yvonne Salinas, our Programs Manager, Eric Alberg, Genesis Perez, Tyler Neufeld, Nick Foreman, as well as Rhiannon Cielos Chavez. I also have a huge thank you just to all of the different presses and literary organizations that are involved. You can read all about them in the program book, but this is very much a collective effort. This particular program is called The New Series, and this is actually the intersection of a sort of autumn-long program that we run with the Southern California Poetry Festival. And the New Series exists it's a series we launched several years ago that commissions new work from poets and writers. Each night, the 3 or 4 poets who are participating are given a certain theme, and they are asked to write a completely original composition from that theme. Every year when we do this, we try and sort of lump the themes around a general larger theme. And so this year we were very much interested in questions of place, questions of home, questions of sort of space. And so the first program we had back in September, the theme was In Transit. The theme we had in October was Querencia, which is a Spanish term meaning a sense of place or home. It's derived from a boxing ring, or from a bull ring, actually. It's where the bull hangs out in the bull ring. And this evening's theme is short-term rental. I think we're all very interested in questions of affordability, of tenure on land, et cetera, et cetera. That said, whenever we give these themes, the authors are not required to go in any particular direction. They can take it however they want. And so it's really just an opportunity for the writers involved to write something original in whatever form or manner or style they feel compelled to do so. And so tonight, as I said, we do have 3 fabulous authors. We're going to start with Erin Marie Lynch, who is the author of Removal Acts. Her poems appear in Poetry, New England Review, Diagram, Narrative, Poetry Daily, Best New Poets, and other publications. She has received awards and fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts, MacDowell, the Wurlitzer Foundation, Indigenous Nation Poets, and the Hugo House. She was born and raised in Oregon. She's a direct descendant of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. Currently, she is a PhD candidate in creative writing and literature at the University of Southern California. She lives here in Los Angeles. Please, everyone, welcome Erin Marie Lynch.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for having me. Yeah, I love when I get a theme and then I end up with what I end up with, and then I hear the theme again, and I'm like, okay. So, this is an opportunity for you maybe you'll find some connections. I mean, I know the connections inside of me, but maybe you all will find some others as well. I'm going to read one long sort of hybrid piece, and then there'll be a short video at the end. Scrape. A series of videos I made in the room I lived in. I am sitting, I am standing, I stand then sit, sit then stand, cross legs, uncross, nexus of videos, crosshairs of legs, cross-haired, where was I? 2020, in my pink velvet chair, paint scraped off the wall. My computer sat on the desk by the window in the room I lived in. I set up online, I fell down a hole, from which I emerged hours later physical in that room in the past, the way a mirror gives back a scene reversed. Online, in the archive, I searched for you, some trace of you in me. At this time, I wore leadenness over my chest like a bib for x-rays at the dentist. I could not cry. Pleasure caught in my throat at the sight of a clear tarp flapping on the half-built condos across the street. Inside the room, violence came so close to me I did not call it what it was. It was a man, his large body taking up space in places inside me. The man smelled like a man, and I wanted his hands on my neck. Online, he met me. Offline, we kissed. Something turned in my gut almost from the beginning. My friend used a database to find his real name. The name he had given me was almost real, which is to say false. I Googled the real name and saw real photographs of real bruises on another woman's neck and chest. He had hurt many women. The women had written about what he did. When I read what they wrote, I felt close to them. I read everything they had written. Their words moved inside me. I threw up, yellow bile coating the strands of my hair that fell in the toilet bowl. Against my friend's advice, I gave him a chance to explain. He said he'd found sobriety. He said he'd changed spiritually. He spoke with a flat affect I'd grow accustomed to, controlled with controlled feeling. To love a changed man seemed to me a mark of my extraordinary power, to hold the entirety of someone. I wanted to do that. He was different now, he said. He had lost everything, but he had not died. Who was I then? To watch these videos now. In them, this woman who believed she had power. She does little. She walks toward the camera, then away, stares into the camera, then away, sits down, crosses arms. This woman framed inside this room she lived in, whole life barely living, furniture I forgot she owned, pink velvet chairs, air conditioner in the window, the bed behind the camera out of frame. The past is a reflective material. The marks on the wall where the chair's metal edge scraped paint. I felt sick much of the day, many of those days, sick in my muscles, spiritually too. Still I answered when he called. When he knocked, I opened. When he entered the room I lived in, he said, "It is good to be seen." It was 2020. I saw few friends. Alone in the room I lived in, I did not know what compelled me, but the way he looked at me was a searing and therefore compelling gaze, like God's in that it was like a ruler who was sexual. He was like God in that I feared him and didn't know what he would do when I saw him, and would it be painful? "What's the worst thing you've ever done?" he asked. I lay on the couch. I thought for a while. Words said in anger, thrown at my mother, shoplifting, cheating in school. I don't remember what I said, but I remember he accused me of lying. I'm still trying to come up with a good answer. Truly terrible. Every day, when the door closed behind him, I didn't write about what he had done to the women, what he was doing to me. Instead, I wrote about the archive of another violence, the violence on the scale of genocide of our culture, on the scale of our people. I entered it. I looked for you there, my great-great-grandmother. In the archive, you were the woman close to violence, not me. In the archive, I found a photo of you, your face marked by the passage of time as it scraped itself across the photo. There I saw you seeing me. I had a dream of you, picking dead skin around my fingernails, your face turned downward, hidden by your hair. Every day, I reread what the women wrote online. I looked at the photos on their Instagrams. I looked at photos of them the way I looked at photos of you, like dead women. The way I looked at myself in the mirror, opening our exaggerated eyes and small mouths, the women breathed through my nostrils. I exhaled from our throat and heard us sigh. I dreamed about them too. I saw them at the bar, in the woods, and felt scared and ashamed, but knew I had to say, I am your daughter, your sister, your multiple. I reached toward them, woke up before touching their sleeve. And every day I made a video of selves, my selves, contained in multiple, what multiple unfolds varied structures opening, the women hardly me, their brittle motion, sitting, standing, in first multiple, shifting the chair, every other multiple, the chair does not move, the video itself not the same, but the room I lived in the same, the motions the same, cast of light the same, and actions the same, and self the same with variations, hands clasped behind back, hands on knees, green dress, black dress, to know barely anything of these moving women, to be moved by them and yet unmoved, as if shapes seen through murky aquarium water. Some things are not mine to forgive. Some things multiply. He made me promise I would not write about him. The women all wrote about me, he said. The women wrote about him at a time when women were sharing publicly the harms they had suffered. Their writing saved me. Still, I do not want to write about him. At the time I wrote, what is evil? To place a whole person's being as evil. It is hard to imagine the cruelty required. Like his limb, his extension of him. Never felt feeling so rough, sick, ugly. During that time when I heard jokes about violence, something turned over inside me. Grab a woman by the arm, someone said on the radio, and my vision went dark. In the room, I had stacks of books against the wall, poetry, memoir. When I moved them to sweep, hundreds of mite casings, little dusty shells. I do not want to conflate these many violences formed at great distances from one another. The size of a nation, the size of the internet, the size of a heart. To be in the archive is to be passive and active at once. To be listener, viewer, feeler, to add to shared memory, not to be passive, but to receive. Your face in the archive, my great-grandmother. The images circulated, another woman's neck, my own unsmiling face in the videos, the difference between these, between looking and being. To spectate the lives of the past in others. One's own life, to allow a life that has happened to her. To allow the lives of others to happen, so deeply together. I do not write about, I write of. The screen as surface body moves across, not captured by screen, but gliding across it like surface of water, like water bugs skimming a lake. You who lived through great violence, in another dream you came to me. I stared into a koi pond. You were a giant, beautiful golden fish, swimming so slowly, swimming in circles as protection as you kept moving, so slowly that you could not be caught, even by me. Women, myselves, or I theirs, you in them, the women, you in me, the multiple in us, as if there could be singular violence, as if theirs could be mine, as if yours could be yours, as if mine could not be theirs. Archive that shifts and removes and morphing, and of the living and of the violence done to dead, and the way the dead who also lived beyond it into a space beyond imagining. A spider plant hanging in the corner, pulling its hook slowly from the ceiling. For years after I finally blocked his number, I tried not to think about what had happened. Even here in this writing, to resist positioning myself in relation to coercion and violence. I don't want to just make a record of bad things that happened. None of this is about him at all. To meet a man, any man, and wonder if he entered the room, whose arms might go numb and lift for a moment out of her body. Some people are dead, and other people are not dead at all. At the end of each video, I walk toward the camera to turn it off, move toward screen. The camera I move toward, and picking it up, it shifts wildly, comes close to my face large and at a slant angle, and different expressions passing across this view of my face in the moment after the moment. Forgive me for placing you so close to the violence in me, to scrape these cells as clean as I can possibly.
Erin Marie Lynch, everybody. Oh, sorry. On stage direction.
That was part of it.
I'll try this one more time. Another round of applause for Erin Marie Lynch. Next up, we have Gail Wronsky, who is the author, co-author, or translator of 16 books of poetry and prose. Her latest collection of poems, The Stranger You Are, with artwork by the renowned artist Gronk, is recently out from Tiatuca Press. Other titles include the poetry collections Under the Capsized Boat We Fly, New and Selected Poems, Dying for Beauty, Poems for Infidels, and Fuegos Florales, Flowering Fires, a translation of Argentinian poet Alicia Partnoy's poems, winner of the American Poetry Prize from Settlement House Press. Please, everyone, welcome Gail Wronsky.
Hi. Thank you, Quentin, and thank you, Erin. That was fabulous. So our topic was short-term rental, and I always go for metaphor. I always read for metaphor. So immediately I thought that was a metaphor for life, you know, that we have a short-term rental period on our bodies. And then that made me think of Streetcar Named Desire, in which Tennessee Williams has the character Blanche Dubois describe life as the long parade to the graveyard, you know, and the short-term rental really comes up against that in an interesting way for me. So I wrote a series of poems. There are 5 poems, and they all, the titles all begin with, "On the short-term rental of our bodies." The first thing I thought about was, well, it's a really short time that we're here, so why are we always complaining? And me especially. So the subtitle here is A Complaining Tone of Voice. The night removes our masks. Day attaches them to our faces, yet doesn't give us even a shadow of a sword we can use in our own defense. This pisses me off. Meanwhile, our faces are either stone or wax. Our hearts are either steel or butter. We get smaller the farther away we go. The tragic, like a horse with blinders on, has lost its perspective. The sky, a solid block of invisible ink, shows us no signs, gives us no guidance. Sure, some of us have weightlifters in our brains doing the heavy lifting. Even they can't know that they're forgetting something because in a flash, it's forgotten. A poet/fortune teller once told me, in seed time, write. In harvest, write. In winter, write. I said to her, in a complaining tone of voice, stars of exhaustion burst like bubbles around my consciousness. Are you alive, she said? Then stop complaining. The other thing I thought of with short-term rental of the body is the past. And, you know, I'm an older poet now, and what we older poets do often is go back to the past and write about it. And I haven't done that very much, so I'm new to this being older business. But this poem came to me on the short-term rental of the body, those days, and it's a sonnet. Those days seemed to shed sheets of silver metal, to crackle like tinfoil, and grass was greener then, greener even than the amazement we felt about everything. Now we find ourselves, as in some sad dog story, sitting near reservoirs burning with late twilight fire, hunting down that moment when our eyes slide across the watery surface of a verse and a new brain blooms for us. That moment we briefly live another life or relive a singular time, zeroing in on the internalized eternity of those days when we were ravenous as wolves. This is a poem I've been trying to write for years and just never got it down. And, you know, there are mountains of crumpled paper that this poem comes out of. One of the things I thought of with short-term rental of the body was birthdays. And this is a poem I've been trying to write about a birthday of mine a very long time ago. It's called A Birthday Hike with a Former Husband Many Years Ago. An erratic layer of mousy clouds spun beneath my eyelids that day when nothing, it seemed, could have been otherwise. Behind us, the sun flung pale rays. We'd been talking about nuclear catastrophe, the idea that most likely we'd been over-irradiated, that maybe we were already baked goods. That conversation. Yet we drifted almost happily, as if drunk, down the middle of a path, past wild grasses, past skin a small snake had shed. I stepped on a sharp stone and was about to mutter a rosary of curses when he interrupted me abruptly. Whatever you're about to say, just don't tell me again about how great poetry is. These grasses don't evoke anything but drabness and absence. Our walk had unleashed a flood of fury I'd seen in him only once before. Poetry is just slightly perverse nonsense, petit bourgeois fantasy. It's like a threatening riddle. It's dead waves of already dead words. None of it makes sense. You've heard those things. You're wrong, I said. It's defiance, astonishment, love, a descent into the forbidden, into the hereafter, into unexplored spaces of dreams and sorcerous realms. It's the antidote to our affinity for self-destruction, and so on. Hell, then, let's pour honey on 100 altars in honor of poetry, he said. I felt suddenly very tired. Later, after a meal I made of pot roast and mashed potatoes, during which we both privately regretted our decision to meet, cold raindrops broke through a star-studded sky. Grass is miraculous, I said to his back as he left my apartment. You'll miss it when it's gone. Later that night, I celebrated myself and sang. Oh, that's great. I was really worried about how that one was going to go over. Okay, and then I thought, I'm not a particularly religious person, but I thought Jesus had an awfully short-term rental of his body, like 33 years. So here's a poem I've been trying to write for a really long time, and this topic provided a context for it. It's about a dream I had about Jesus. We've all had them, right? It wasn't one of those kind of dreams. Yeah. On the short-term rental of our bodies, I was dreaming about Jesus with lines by Yoko Tawada and Dylan Thomas. This I know. I'd fallen recklessly in love with his kindness. But somewhere at the edge of the abyss between my dreaming and my sanity, everything came to a stop. And Jesus appeared in my bedroom with those tragic and iconic eyes, the fragile gravity of his heart, the serene plane of his forehead. Heaven is up there, he said, pointing skyward, and beautifully embroidered with stars. He smiled and showed me his wounds. I touched his palm and entered the end of the world, which reeked, I have to say it, like a truck full of fish heads. Then he evanesced right in front of me, saying simply, die in unjudging love. But what about women, Jesus? Women in the church? I asked the space he left behind. What about the hateful right-wing maneuverings of so many believers? His last words hovered in a sandalwood cloud. Die in unjudging love. It was almost enough to make me want to live. And finally, my last poem is about the short-term rental of the planet. It's an apocalyptic poem as the apocalypse occurs. And it begins with an epigraph from Paul Celan, fold up today already. We will feel instantly like strange inhabitants of our bodies. We'll learn that we haven't ever really been at home here, that we've lived at the level of the cursory, that we've inhabited clouds of existential baloney, that we've outgrown ourselves. We will feel with certainty that we've already lived what we're living now once or several times before, even though we haven't. Some of us will think perhaps it's a drill, a rehearsal as we witness the sky's last smear of Prussian blue. We'll forget the poems that have always refreshed life for us. Some of us will understand that we're paying the price of having internalized nothingness. Some will curse themselves for pissing away their lives. We will mourn the loss of the enigmatic beauty of all beautiful enigmas. We'll no longer believe in immaculate beginnings. We will understand perhaps in our hearts that our immaculate end is here. We were clowns, we were poets, we danced, we drank wine, we made love. We flew, yes, just like birds who do dream, we dreamed. We might as well have been nothing more than creatures in the dreams of birds. Thank you so much.
One more round of applause for Gail, please. Thank you, Gail. And finally, for our last reader, we have the poet, writer, multidisciplinary artist, Harmony Holiday. This is a writer we've long admired here at Beyond Baroque. So please, everybody, welcome Harmony Holiday.
Thank you for leaving the pages up here. Thank you, everyone. My meditation on the theme is an audio that I sent, so I think they'll play it now. Cool.
Right moment. Hey, Rassan. Do you have a message for the people who'll be listening to the part of the record that no one will be listening to?
Oh, yes, Captain. Yes.
What's that?
I don't know if you're on the phone from. They can't come out and proceed to if I was down at the conference, it was a family house, and it's more down.
No.
Yeah, I got some to step over and severity. But, in that, we all know that there will never be peace. I would like to say bright moments and joy through the universe to all very beautiful people that might take time out to pay their ears to this very beautiful spinning piece of material that's in their presence. Bright moments.
Bright moments.
And joy, because we know the whole thing of peace has passed us all by. Serenity and joy through the land.
That's it. That's Rassan Roland Kirk. I've sampled that a lot, but I've never played like the full clean audio at a reading, so that is all. And I'm going to read from a new chapbook that I'm turning in Monday called The Museum of Child Stars, which also feels related to the theme, and you'll probably hear why. So yeah. Starts out with a quote from Margot Jefferson. I wanted to make my way to the center of American culture and decenter it. During the final years of his life, in pain and disgrace, and having been working since he was a child, Michael Jackson longed to retire from performing and create a museum devoted to honoring the legacies of child stars. This is his museum of child stars, ours, a broken arc made of tragic heroes and high-low voices muted by feral spectators. Or are the spectators rabid but unable to be feral, or pharaoh, robotically entranced by the glow of idols? This is our museum of freedom's starlight. Nobody is allowed inside. We are the world plays sped up when you press a bell near the entrance, a trapdoor, ne touchez pas. No one warned us. It leads to the treacherous tunnels where they say child traffickers go to party and our idols are party favors. I hope I heard it wrong. No one is allowed inside without first committing a crime that locks them there forever. He did adore it thus. I did love him madly. Nobody knows. We were a bit like refugees, a little bit faked or hacked. Death meets forever flesh, a little early settlement between pleasure pusher and pain cell. This place is their arraignment, their secret truce or cicatrice tristis on the safety of heartbreak, on disabuse of power, or of the power of spectacle. Go Away, Little Boy by Nancy Wilson is playing in the lobby, but no one can come in here. Stars are dangerous up close, nearer to God and the devil than thee. They threaten to burn the children and museums. Here come some torch songs against these torture chambers between threat and self-actualization. This is where stars came to be extinguished, a brutalist edifice made of malice and rescue. There's so much luck in this place, it assumes the texture of rotting fruit tucked between the wings and wounds of insects. A disaffected requiem for sweet things turned acid, acrid black, seated things, audience escaping as dismissal or docents in Michael's empty museum, wearing those uniforms that favor him in Indiana, double nose, struck by the father into thick blue guardianship over Paris and Disneyland, and slapping him back in a home movie we can't see. Sun Ra loved Disney music, was abducted and taken to Saturn as a child. And have you seen that photo of George Clinton and Bootsy Collins at Disneyland? That's Vengeance too. And Ella, who loved black music so much, so well, she slurred rage into sorrow. This is our museum of child stars at rehearsal, media training, taking bribes to imitate pleasure, pain, anhedonia, winning, can't feel a thing, blaming the bribes for bad shows and other dysfunction. I was high, I was hurt, and I was the meaning of childhood. Let's see. Handler number 1, Optimistic by Radiohead, Black Edition, wherein the singer is just as flippant but less callous about it, less curse in the chorus, more what is this thing called love? I'm having this bad thing where I forgive everybody, become whole, and am more inspired by pretty clothes and grudges. That terrifying thing where I get to be a girl again. This has a sample of a Kamala quote. There's a lot of like screenshots and unburdened by what has been. Let's see. Fluke. That her flanks and lace made radiant principles of the hold-up, wait, I'll wait for you. 1977 version is such a penetrating song about preemptive loss, regaining the boss's traction over your will, but that troubled romance has sanded wounds that begin as woman addicted to pills and wine. I'll do no such thing. I won't even wait an hour at the braiding salon to make my hair look like Sade when she made everyone feel crazy by remaining so calm as heartbreak's only reliable coroner. The flanks are Billie Holiday's, thinning, eroding, cloaked in Eros from Freemasons in the Rhodesia Museum of Infant Death Stars. Wet as the bloody graves of those bombed out in the questionable, yes, ask again, baby, is this genocide? Plausible genocide? Who do they attend, abide, those for whom heartbreak has nothing to do with romance? And between gigs and recording sessions, her and Betty would babysit Miles's children, the ones he had with his first wife from back home in St. Louis, and left with her to escape to Paris to date that white actress. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. It's a little famous, just enough, a little trick, that after all these years of studying the fleshy etymology of my inheritance music, the word griot, the local riot, 802, 304, TikTok time falls like into locks and popular songs and the wordless going toward the light to speak, that the outcome is as I imagined it. I am now one of the ones who knows these stories so well. It's as if everything happens to me. There's a need for you to experience unbridled joy. I don't want to write love letters to white people. So I had to kill off my mother in the first scene. Dismissal, like letting class out early so you can really get to work. The alienated labor of the black child of the white mother is not all that tragic, allergic to lightness for the record, and it sells cellular, cellophane, solo fame, Damien Hirst. The only slaves Jefferson released were Hemmings. So be it, name your price. It's not that I was never nurtured, it's that this nurturing felt like defeat, something to overcome, something that wanted to kill me, but thought of murder as seeing itself in the mirror as my image, something that wanted to be me, something that made me for lack of being me, something so radiant. Except trapped in that tunnel where I grow, trapped in believing salvation comes from the outside world or Oprah. That haggard overcoming to become was never our mission. So the first scene is redemption. This is how mercenaries are made. This is how you make child stars. This is how you groom child stars, the moon's favorite brides. And I'll read one more. Or maybe two, one longer and one shorter. This might get cut, and this might be the only time this is read or seen, but I wanted to have it here as a placeholder. It's untitled. Whistleblowers who have escaped assure that there are tunnels under the Getty Museum, that they're used for child trafficking. I remember that April when I went to see Galway Connell read there. I was in high school. We took flying saucers up the hill. We could see killers and Range Rovers beneath us, the hungry ghosts of low-speed chases. He read from his book of nightmares. That one poem about the dead being raised incorruptible made me cry, buy the book, approach him to sign it, and promise never to stop reading or writing verse. Next time I saw him, it was at a private workshop. We discussed Lorca. He warned me of what I had and what it might cost. Something trembled, emboldened. We went for lunch. How lucky I am, evaluating the sky above the museum to be sold into poems while my peers are traded for famous men down there below. How dangerous I am. And this is for MF Doom. It's called The Doom Elegies. Feels related to the theme because we love MF Doom here. Daniel Dumail, my other Charlie Parker, my ornithologist of the metal mask, my grasp on hysteria turns aluminum and scuffles and tinsels and silhouettes. He died of recovery in a ridden way, bloated, riddled, backing away like Fred says he intends to wave goodbye in slow motion. Souls complete their missions and compete for death like beggars. Painless, not exactly, malpractice, exactly, euthanasia by hate, or ennui, exactly, and love is no better, love too, a kind of death wish in the arms of the world. The secret winnow between private notes, passing, passive overture of the wing, thieving Winona, so ruined by hope and clothes so costumed in ruminants, opening as sonata in the morning to stride notes of bluebirds, early, leaving terrible infinity of ritualized sodomy and de-ritualized griot screaming. Romance turns on everything it touches, heroes too. But if you go numb in the bloody open wound, it spins around and taunts with glints of skin to skin, the intimacy of healing cells reuniting like star-crossed lovers, the erotics of it, the deteriorating bloom and January rumors. Let's rest here, be still as beasts of prey and burden. Let's keep ourselves cold together, unburdened toward the unison between two silences. He is too filled with sin, replete and repentant, dismissed even, too Appalachian. What do you mean, then, for too inaccessible and weathered skin? Why feel sorry for he who is enthralled in celebration of his own defeat? Who is simply leaving, who abandoned the weeds for pasture, Afro-Whitman candor of I and sorcerer I, who is another child star stealing harps from hell. For the museum, his mask on the wall, a willow of doll-like. I see him in Abby Lincoln, my girl, Aphrodite's gun. And a spindle invocation of the golden lady in her tender reverence, in her fade as comeback bellow hello. We're at a party now, arguing over something frivolous until I learned her apartment was filled with self-sewn dolls that have no home, in, like her mouth, held together by threads, which she is still screeching, strays who make great company except in appraisal, going nowhere. I search for them at Sotheby's, find devastations, traces, her clothes, moldings of her broken teeth, impressions of her voice made on sanded stone, the limp heaps of fabric, samples with felt scraps for the idea of a vision, heterotoxic incisions on the rotting window of the relentlessly brooding screamer. This is my museum of child stars. Its qualities are easy to groom, but difficult to break or ruin, like a coveted breed of canine, and like that, capable of backing the police, of sensing and averting danger, of trusting danger, performing it as entertainment or entitlement, captive, plainclothes mask, that doomed chatterbox wicked with ho-talks of sustaining the state of being in danger for a riveted and oblivious audience. Are there flowers on them? Are there butlers of innocence, a wardrobe, a stash of fatigues, a fast, traumatized memory encapsulating everything? Lauryn Hill, late again but alive. She's the high priestess of the Child Star Museum because I can, as I invent it, remember her singing spirituals and giving us a tour of her dormitory at Columbia, a humble wit, ramen and moon pies. Willing to be trained, to drink socially, to try cocaine at parties, to decline would be impolite, to take impromptu meetings with Kurt Cobain and me and my dreaming. Sorry, I think this is out of order. me see. I'm going to do something different because that poem is out of order and I can't reorder it. I'm going to read this last section, Slow Singing and Flower Bringing. In black dialectic dematerialized lingua franca, the star implies a ship, as in Norman Connor's lyrics match, you are my starship. You are my child star, my starting lineup, my innocence in a lineup. When our time is up, you raise its stakes. You make it tremble and bully itself slow and consolably crowned, a cuff around the Brownsville psyche, bronzing, biking uphill to a Frank Ocean sample, the sound of the gears turning, very pretty, slightly psychotic about visibility and trivia. Against all trivial uses of childhood, could have killed her. Left her for dead at the ballet like a fawn raised by jackals. She stayed there. Tribe, my idle bride, my slower martyr. By viewing, I mean the lowly revenue of synthetic blues and a fisheye lens loose. When I asked him why a museum and not Neverland, like that home gone numb in testimony, it was a perfect phone call. Because elegies be still in the angelic grieving of vacant property as seasick it wobbles, builds cases against the arrested decay of these last days. Every jaded minstrel needs a sleeping aid. The museums are the cages we make bait confrontational sterility of dead, speechless divas encased in sleeping sickness. This is always. Betty lights a match in the cadence of baffled triumph, ablaze against irises, blushing with bloodied it girl radiance. Addiction to shame made us love him. This fine institution he made of himself then for them, as Stevie Wonder version in one gallery we talk about when his sight returned again and again in tabloids as if Motown had invented a character. Blind harmonica cuddling child comes up shining, obnoxiously clairvoyant, leaking beauty onto the anemic to sell tickets. It's dialect, in a dialect it can understand, black pain. An autopsy, growing up to be a ghost of a black boy trapped in the scandal of his talent, screaming for help while we cheer, burst into tears, little indulgent hysterics. Loving museum acoustics, we go around diagnosing every object with inescapable elegance, so it stays, is forced to stay. Call it compelling, spellbound, a fling, a little more affluent than slaving. The museum houses the wreckage of our unlived lives, costumes, contracts, rehearsal tapes, airline tickets, hotel vouchers, makeup with a stench of lead in it, embossed backpacks, two-way mirrors, flasks for gin and Kool-Aid, smudged baby pictures, smut wrapped in the covers of fine literature, fabricated vacations, photographs torn into teeth and eyes, glamorous hostages, all in one place, so their exile is a little less like death. All the time, less trendy, less approachable. I think I'm addicted to Michael Jackson. Every day I listen to his songs, watch his videos. I can't stop. I cry every night. Thank you. I think we get to have a party now.
Another round of applause for Erin. Thank you, Gail. Couple things. We do have some books for sale in the bookstore. Please do buy them, support our authors. I'm sure they'll be willing to sign them for you. And as Harmony mentioned, we have a little bit of a party in the backyard. We have a DJ, DJ Gemma Castro. Feel free to hang out for a while, have some drinks, talk, and come back to the festival tomorrow. We'd love to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.